Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah subhanahu. First of all, I would like to thank the Foundation for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation that is taken from my master's thesis. My article deals with a specific aspect of Nursi's Tukt that is relatively neglected in the work done so far, its perception of the wisdom contained in religious prescriptions. As Nursi is part of a tradition, in this case the Sunni tradition, it was necessary to focus firstly on what could be found in it in relation to our subject of study. Even if the subject of the wisdom contained in religious prescriptions seems to relate solely to legal discipline, we saw that it was originally a question of theology. Thus, theologians have largely debated the place of the hikmah in the action and the divine word. The idea of wisdom in religious prescriptions, therefore, has theological roots. This idea is also to be found in the works of Sufi and philosophers. In the absence of the theological conception of divine wisdom, maybe it would seem that it would not have been possible to speak of a specific discipline elaborated around this notion, namely that which is called Hikmat-u Teşri. This research proposes to find answers to the following questions. Does Nursi's approach have an antecedent in history of Islamic Tukt? To what extent does the study of the wisdom of religious prescriptions in Nursi's Tukt allow you to contribute to the clarification of the author's intellectual identity? Why did Nursi give so much importance to the wisdom aspect of religious prescriptions? Is there continuity or rupture between Nursi and his predecessors, contemporaries, and successors? First, about the theological debates on the hikmah. All theologians agree on the fact that God is Hakim, wise. However, they diverge on the content of this attribute. The essential question posed by theologians was as follows. The divine actions, are they necessarily motivated by wisdom, hikmah, causes, illah, and interest, maslaha? In other words, does the divine will take these elements into account when it creates or orders? According to the Mu'tazilites and the Maturidites, in every divine action there is a wisdom, a cause and an interest that can be understood by human reason. There are, however, nuances between the Mu'tazilites and the Maturidites. While the Mu'tazilites think that wisdom and interest necessarily exist in divine actions, the Maturidites believe that these elements exist through lutuf, divine grace. Those who defended this position were called Ashab Hikmet, men of wisdom. The Jabrites and the Ash'arites refuse this idea. For them, divine actions are not linked to causes and wisdom. To link divine actions to causes and wisdom means for them to limit the divine will or to subordinate it to wisdom and cause. The Ash'arites also put forward the following argument. There are things in the world that contain no wisdom and advantage, such as pests and diseases. This shows that divine action and will are independent of the idea of wisdom. Because of their position putting the accent on the divine will, the Jabrites and Ash'arites were called Ashab Meshiyat, so voluntarist. The divergence on the place of wisdom in the motivation of divine actions is also found in the motivation of religious prescriptions. For the Jabrites, just as there is no wisdom in the creation of God, there is no wisdom in the divine law. The Ash'arites are divided into two groups on this question. While some share the position of the Jabrites, others admit that there are wisdoms and interests in the divine law. However, they deny the causal relationship, illiya, between them and the law. For the Mu'tazilites and the Maturidites, just as there are wisdoms and interests in divine actions, These elements also exist in divine laws. The principle is clear for them. The religious prescriptions are subordinated to the interest of the servants. The purpose of religious prescriptions is to allow humans to gain happiness in both worlds. About the legal debates on the Hikmah, the main questions asked by lawyers were as follows. Do the religious prescriptions and Hukm al-Shari contains motivations or wisdom, and are these accessible to human reason? And second question, was the justification of religious prescription, ta'lil, based on the hikmah or on the illah? About the existence of ta'lil in religious prescriptions, there are three positions on this issue among the usuli. Those who refuse the idea of justification, ta'lil, are supporters of ta'abbud, servility, or tahakkum, arbitrary. According to this view, the primary objective of religious prescriptions is to lead men to submission to divine orders. The proponents of this position are the Kharijites, the Imamites, the Zahirites, and certain Mu'tazilites. There is also two categories in this category. One is moderate, and other is not very moderate. Another position is to accept the justification ta'lil as principle. Thus, according to the proponents of this idea, all religious precepts, whether of the order of belief, practice, or ethics, are related to causes, interests, and wisdom. And there is a medium position, represented in particular by Al-Ghazali and Al-Shatibi, consists in making a division between the divine prescriptions. While the principle for worship, ibadat, is the ta'abbud, justification is the principle for the prescriptions within relationships between men, so the mu'amalat. About the place of the hikmah and the illah in the justification of religious prescriptions, there are three different views on the justification of this issue. According to the first opinion, whether the hikmah is apparent and stable, the justification based on it is absolutely rejected. This review is attributed to most usuli. The second opinion, attributed to Fakhreddin Razi and Al-Baydawi, accepts the justification based on hikmah. In a third opinion, the justification based on hikmah is valid if it is apparent and stable. Today, writers like Fazlur Rahman and Muhammad Abed al-Jabri believe that justification based on hikmah is more consistent with the philosophy of Islamic law, and classical method of fuqaha is simplistic because it does taking into account only the illah for justification. Despite the many debates about the place of hikmah in justifying religious prescriptions, a specific discipline was developed around this concept. Its name is Hikmat-u Teşri. According to the classification of sciences carried out by Tashri in his book Miftah al-Sa'ada wal Misbah Siyada, so Hikmat-u Teşri is one of the subparts of Furu al-Fiqh. Some writers like Ismail Hakkı, Süleyman Uluda, consider that Hikmat-u Teşri can be the philosophy of prescriptions, the philosophy of law, or even the philosophy of religion. Now about the problem of the wisdom contained in the religious prescriptions according to Nursi. Although the concept of Hikmat-u Teşri does not appear as such, we find its meaning in several passages of the collection Risale-i Nur. After analyzing the importance of the concept of hikmah in the Risale-i Nur collection, we will study the methodological aspects related to Hikmat-u Teşri, and eventually we will give some examples cited by Nursi. First of all, about the importance of the notion of hikmah in Risale-i Nur. Nursi does not fit into the theological debates about the divine names as they can be found in the works of classical theologians, such as the debate on the origin of divine names. Daniel Gimaret, a French writer, considers that there are three ways of approaching divine names in Islamic literature: lexicographical, theological, and spiritual. Reading the treatise on the divine names and other passages of the collection Risale-i Nur'da, we note that the exegesis of the divine names in Nursi is of a spiritual kind. So the importance of the notion of hikmah can be explained by the fact that for Nursi, his work is a manifestation of the divine name Al-Hakim, and its focus on the wisdom of religious prescriptions can be explained by the importance he gave to the concept of hikmah in general. About the methodological aspects, we find in the collection the distinction between ta'abudi and ma'qulul ma'na. While ta'abudi prescriptions shall be made only because they have been ordained by God, ma'qulul ma'na prescriptions are based on wisdom and benefits that explain God's preference for these prescriptions. The distinction performed in Islamic law between hikmah and illah resumed by Nursi. Thus, in the 27th word devoted to ijtihad, Nursi considers that the door of ijtihad is open, but there is 6 reasons that prevent at that time to go through this door. The 5th reason, while ijtihad is supposed to be heavenly, semaviyeh, Nursi lists 3 perspectives that make worldly arziyeh ijtihad made at this time. The first is directly related to the distinction between hikmah and illah. Nursi thus lies in the continuity of the position denying the justification of religious prescriptions based on hikmah. However, even if Nursi considers the illah of religious duties and prohibitions to be divine order and prohibition, he recognizes that benefits and wisdom may be at the origin of these duties, prohibitions, from the point of view of the divine name Al-Hakim. Apart from the emphasis he has placed on the role that can play the divine name Al-Hakim in the existence of religious prescriptions because of wisdom, Nursi prefers to follow the classical position that is attributed to the majority of Usuli. Now I will talk about some examples of religious prescriptions in Risale-i Nur'da. Nursi speaks about wisdoms related to the 5 pillars of Islam and certain other prescriptions, like the veil, polygamy, inheritance, punishment of the apostate, the punishment of the thief, the call to prayer, and meat pork. To the extent that it is not possible to address all the prescriptions in this presentation, we will content ourselves with giving 2 controversial examples in modern times. This will enable you to contribute to the clarification of Nursi's intellectual identity, at least in legal matters. About the question of the veil, before studying the epistle of Nursi devoted to the veil, it should be placed in its historical context. It is from the 19th century that the veil begins to appear as the most emblematic sign of the inferior condition of women in Islam. By the end of the 19th century, influenced by the reformist idea of Khedive Ismail, Egyptian women abandoned the veil. At the same time, Qasim Emin considers that the use of the veil, as it is commonly practiced in society, has no basis in religion. In the Ottoman side, according to Niyazi Berkes, is from 1908 that the institution of the family, the place of women in society, and the veil began to be debated in the society. 2 camps were opposed on issues related to women, the Occidentalists and the Islamists, while Islamists like Ibrahim Abdul Rashid, Abdul Latif Nevzat, Ferit Vecdi, Ismail Hakkı İzmirli, Mehmet Fahrettin, and others defended the veil in journals such as Sirat al-Mustaqim and Sebilur Rashad. The Occidentalists such as Abdullah Cevdet, Selahaddin Asım, Kılıçzade Hakkı, and Rıza Tevfik criticized the veil in their articles published in the journal Ijtihad. The nationalists, as Ziya Gökalp, they were pretty close to Occidentalists. Even today, the veil is being debated among Muslim writers. Why the majority of Sunni and Shiite religious authorities see a religious obligation in the wearing of the veil. Some authors, as Leila Babes and Muhammad Sharfi, think that this is one of the greatest mystifications that Muslims have ever produced on their own religion, and that this obligation is one of the elements showing the discrimination against women in the Sharia. Facing criticism made by the Occidentalists, Nursi formulated his ideas about the veil in 1910 when he was a member of the Academy of Islamic Wisdom, Darul Hikmet Islamiyya. He developed this idea and so prepared the 24 flashes. In this treatise, Nursi made exegesis of the verse 59 of Surah Al-Ahzab. According to him, this verse affirms the obligation of the veil, but dissolute civilization, as Nursi says, considers the veil as a slavery and does not see it as natural. For Nursi, this Quranic prescription is perfectly natural. It attempts to demonstrate the natural character of the veil by explaining the moral and physical characteristics of women and men, the place of women in society and the family, the woman's relationship with her husband and children, and the influence of geography on the human being. Some authors, such as Éric Chaumont, a French writer, criticize this type of ethical, rational presentation of the veil, which consists in seeing in the obligation of the veil rationally definable advantages for the woman, also for men and for society. According to Éric Chaumont, this ethical, rational presentation of the veil is an innovation in Islam, since it is not found in any of the classics or imams among the ancient pious Salafi Salihin. For him, the only reason for this innovation is to counter the criticism itself of an ethical, rational nature, whose veil has been the object for several decades. Now about the inheritance. While classical and traditionalist jurists seek to justify the inequality of the sex before the inheritance in various ways, modernist writers believe that it is necessary to continue the revolution in the direction indicated by the Prophet, that is to say, up to gender equality. Thus, if the woman who received nothing as an inheritance in pro-Islamic law received half a share in Muslim law, this represents an improvement over the previous situation. Others, such as Fazlur Rahman, Nas Hamid Abu Zaid, and Muhammad Talbi, advocate this point of view and propose to read the Quran in an intentionalist, finalist way in order to preempt what God meant by what he said when he revealed his word. In his comparison between the laws of civilization and the Quranic laws, Nursi also deals with the question of inheritance. He clearly defends this inequality and describes as unreasonable Western civilization criticizing the Quranic prescriptions concerning the inheritance. Similar explanations can be found in several authors. For example, Fakhreddin Razi justifies that the man takes a higher share than the woman by the obligation to nafaka incumbent on it. This obligation nafaka causing more expenses for men, it will need more good compared to women. Therefore, it is legitimate to privilege man during inheritance. A contemporary author of Nursi, El-Malala Hamdi Yazır, also defends the same approach. According to him, if the woman inherits more or the same than man, it will alter legal equality. This is why God has provided justice by forcing one side to the man nafaka, and on the other side, giving him a share of the inheritance. To conclude, even if Bediüzzaman Said Nursi did not devote his magnum opus, which is the Risale-i Nur'da collection, to this theme, the fact remains that he also deals with it. Considering that his work is a manifestation of the divine name Al-Hakim, Nursi places an important place on the notion of hikmah. This explains, in his opinion, his analysis of the wisdom contained in religious prescriptions. He tries to justify rationally, sometimes as a Sufi by using the word esrar, secrets, sometimes as a jurist by using the word hikmet, wisdom, religious prescriptions from the point of view of their wisdoms. whether it is the prescriptions of worship, ibadat, as the 5 pillars of Islam, those relating to social relations, muamalat, such as polygamy, inheritance, or those of the criminal law, ukubat, like apostasy and theft. Nursi defends them with ardor by affirming that all the prescriptions of the Sharia contain wisdom. As much as he defends certain controversial issues in modern times, like apostasy, theft, polygamy, and the veil, it is not possible to classify it among the reformist and especially modernist authors, at least in legal matters. It emerges from his remarks on these various questions, but also on ijtihad, that Nursi can be classified among the traditionalist authors who are characterized, according to Hervé Bleuchot, a French jurist, by their attachment to traditions and their will to defend classical Muslim law. Thank you.